Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's check out War Gods. This is the PlayStation 1 version. So, it's a fairly notorious fighting game. Part of Midway as a publisher, trying their hand out at 3D, the early 3D fighting games. This was not from the same developers as Mortal Kombat. It was a different, smaller team inside of Midway. The big draw for this game was, number one, the 3D models and a button that would actually, pace you around in 3D, but also using the actors who played these characters, digitizing their skin textures and applying them to the models. So it has a very unusual look to it. And unfortunately, the PlayStation version is very much considered to be the worst version between this and the Nintendo 64 version. But that's why we're looking at it. I have never seen this version, so I'm really, really curious about it.
You shall die.
And it's been over 2 decades since I've even played this game. We'll play Kerry Hoskins. Why not? Again, early 3D, so this game it still features combos. It features this 3D movement where you can just kind of walk around the arena if you want. It's the Mortal Kombat style inputs for special moves. Yeah, boy, this version is a mess. I mean, the Nintendo 64 version is not a real looker either, but boy, this is even worse. The resolution is significantly lower.
Wins round 3.
I think they really nailed the announcer, though. I mean, that's a great voice for the announcer.
Valor wins.
I think it certainly doesn't help that the original PlayStation didn't have any texture filtering at all, so that makes the games look even worse. The bad thing about the N64 version is the lower quality textures, right? They're working in cartridge medium, and they had a very small texture base or texture buffer. Yeah, so essentially the 3D button could be used to sidestep. It's the approximation of what it could do versus the 2D game.
Valor wins. Comeback victory. Round 2. Begin. Anubis wins. Round 3, begin. Anubis wins.
I still think it's kind of a fun game. Again, it's really
Continue.
only poorly served by the fact it was in that very early 3D. Even looking back at something like Virtua Fighter or Virtua Fighter 2, which are pretty well respected, I mean, those look not great. Yeah, if only they could have had more polygons for these characters and kind of smoothed out their look, because they did look a little bit chunky. I think it would have gone like a long way to helping it look better.
Anubis wins. Round 2, begin. Vala wins. Round 3.
Boy, that resolution is so rough. It's so rough.
Well done.
It's funny how much better it looks on the N64.
Well done. Danger. Prove yourself. Vala wins. Round 1, begin. Ken wins. Round 2, begin. Auken wins. Continue. Bala, you are chosen.
Not that I know any combos in this game, but there are available. Just some preset ones. That's pretty standard, even for now.
Bala wins. Round 2. Begin.
Hold on a minute. Okay. What are we doing? Should probably look some moves up, honestly.
Ken wins. Round 3, begin. Ken wins.
No, I might run out of quarters.
Lala, you are chosen.
I think people forget the state of 3D games when they look at this game. The early state of 3D fighting games was not particularly great. You had the very flat shaded, rough polygons, like in Virtua Fighter and Virtua Fighter 2. A couple of textures here and there. You had the very early Tekken, which I can't say it looks like a whole lot better than this. And considering how small the team was that made this game, it's fairly impressive what they managed to accomplish. And again, it wasn't the team that was making Mortal Kombat. Even though they share some DNA from Mortal Kombat, but that's really because they were working. That was their model for how to make a fighting game was through Mortal Kombat. The studio's own Mortal Kombat, or the publisher's own Mortal Kombat. Just like early Street Fighter, or Street Fighter games, or Capcom games were really just variations of Street Fighter. Same thing here, Midway published a fighting game, experimenting with 3D, so their natural tendency would be to look at their other fighting games and sort of follow that model as well. I think the only really, really impressive PlayStation era game, which of course came much, much later, was Soul Edge. Or Soul Blade, as it had to be renamed. Then that really, really displayed the, what the PlayStation can do with a long amount of dev time. A lot of experience working with the hardware and software. Yeah, this is one of these games that you kind of have to know how it works already. Like, there's not a lot of learning period with how the game's mechanics will work and don't work, and what a good hit is and where the spacing is.
Bala wins. Perfect victory.
And because of that very steep learning curve, it would have been very hard to get into in the arcades. Even the most basic combo is not something that you could probably think of yourself without a lot of experimentation.
Bala
Whereas I think something like a Street Fighter, and especially something like Virtua Fighter, they let you string together, some very basic combos with just the regular moves, without, too much familiarity into the game. This one you kind of have to go into it knowing how to play it in order to be successful. And something like Virtua Fighter, since it only had the three buttons, combinations of punches and kicks were much easier to figure out, and one move flowed into another pretty smoothly. Whether you were a veteran or a new player.
Bala wins. Round 2. Begin.
So personally, I kind of forgive the weird awkwardness of this game, especially we'll play some other games in the PS1 era, and I think you can kind of see for yourself that 3D fighting was not in any sophisticated state. And it only become very, very good much later in the life cycle.
Kabuki Joe wins. Round 3. Begin.
You get the beginnings of a combo, and then it's, oh god, what do I follow up with? It's very hard to figure out.
Prove yourself.
Nowadays, modern fighting games, even something that came out recently, like Street Fighter, they sort of give you some very easy combos, just even if you're just randomly pressing buttons, or even if you were pressing them in kind of an orderly way, it would still give you something, which is the thing that hooks you into a fighting game. That's the spark of your interest. This one's like, no, you must know what you're doing first, and then you can play my game. But I think this team, I don't even think they had made a fighting game previously, if I'm understanding correctly. So everything was new. The 3D was new, the fighting game genre was new. And if you think about a small team making a new fighting game with no previous experience, these guys were way more successful than many other development teams.
Bala wins. Round 3. Begin.
If we look at like Capcom's earliest 3D fighting game for the PlayStation, Star Gladiator. Oh boy, that game is. We'll play it next week, actually. You after playing it and seeing it, you'll know why they never kept that franchise up. Oh, we're actually getting fatality? Okay.
Attack wins. Fatality.
It's amazing how, fighting game fans will, very easily forgive a big company like Capcom, because they've been producing so many good hits, sometimes. On occasion. They produce a lot of good hits for fans, but then they just tend to kind of forget the really crappy ones. And I think if you're used to a certain kind of feel for your games, you're used to being able to move a certain way and to push push your buttons in a certain way, knowing that links work a certain way, then that kind of gets burned into your mind on how something should be made, without really even considering the possibility that something can be made not that way and still be entertaining.
Vala wins. Round 2. Begin.
I think the PlayStation controller layout also gives me a little hard time to do some of these combos. Because this controller wasn't in mind, when they made this game, so the button layout is completely different.
Prove yourself.
Yeah, this game makes you do a lot of you'll have to do a lot of cross patterns with your button combos. Not a lot of stuff that works vertically, it's not a lot of stuff that works diagonally. So I think that just makes the game just even harder to approach without the buttons being that close to each other for a full combo to complete.
Round 1. Begin. Pagan wins. Round 2. Begin. Pagan wins.
Oh, Pagan. All right, why don't we stop it there? This is audap, and you've been watching War Gods. This is the PlayStation version, PlayStation 1 version. Yeah, this version is not as good as the 64 version. So if you're going to play this game, at least the home console versions of this game, then definitely choose the Nintendo 64 version. The graphics are pretty rough on this, although I will say that it does play just fine. The responsiveness is just fine. All the moves are there. You do have to do with a little bit more loading, even loading, right before you hit a fatality if you're doing any of those in the game. And I say that this is still a pretty good fighting game. Certainly not the top tier out there, and certainly not something that you want to invest like a whole lot of time in to get good at. But I think you can have some fun if you just play it play it very, very casually, since that's really what it's meant to be played as. It's not a competitive tournament fighting game. And the team's inexperience in the game, does show, but at the same time, they came out with a product which works better than most inexperienced teams who had never made a fighting game and who'd never worked in 3D. I think there's some accolade that should be given there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.